Hello and welcome to Cicerone Live. I'm Amy Hodkin and thank you for joining me for our event this evening, which is all about scrambling in the Lake District. We are joined tonight by two people who have lots of expertise and enthusiasm for scrambling and the Lake District, John Fleetwood and Paul Rose. John Fleetwood is Cicerone's author to two new guidebooks to scrambles in the Lake District, which are split into two volumes, North and South. He has lived in the Lake District for over 20 years and is a keen runner, photographer, and mountaineer. John was the first person to complete the Bob Graham, Ramsey, and Paddy Buckley rounds in winter and has climbed and walked in Britain and in various countries across the world. Our second guest also knows a lot about exploration, both in the UK and worldwide. Paul Rose is a popular TV and radio broadcaster with extensive experience. He has presented programmes for the BBC on the Lake District and various long-distance routes in the UK, as well as on expeditions further afield. As one of the world's most experienced divers, field science and polar experts, Paul has worked in Antarctica for the British Antarctic Survey and is the current expedition leader for National Geographic Pristine Seas expeditions. Having spent many years exploring the Lake District, he has a great love for these mountains, and I'm looking forward to welcoming both Paul and John in a few minutes to hear them share their experiences and talk about what makes scrambling in the Lake District unique compared to their international adventures. So we'll start with a discussion between myself, Paul, and John, and then we'll open it up and answer questions from you, the audience. And you can write those in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, or you can email live@cicerone.co.uk. We'll aim to get through as many of those as we can, and if you have any specific technical questions or questions about particular routes, that sort of thing, that'll be a great place to ask those to our experts. And if you're inspired by what you hear today and you'd like to purchase one or both of John's guidebooks, we are running a 25% discount on the books via the Cicerone website. If you use the discount code SCRAMBLE25 at the checkout, that discount code will be on banners across the bottom throughout this event. And yeah, you can use that on either one of the guidebooks or both of them, depending on where your interests lie with that. So I'm going to add John and Paul to the stream now, and welcome to both of them. Hi John, hi Paul.
Hi.
Good to see you, Amy.
Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, great to be here.
So I thought we'd start off by talking about what it is about the Lake District that is unique, because both of you have climbed and explored all over the world. So John, I wondered if you could start us off. What is it about the Lake District and scrambling here?
Okay, I think it's the intimacy of the landscape is how I'd best describe it. You know, it's quite a small place, but you can go from one valley to the next in not very far, but it looks totally different. And there are little corners. And I think what the scrambling helps to do is to bring out the exploration of some of these hidden little corners. So, you know, you won't find 1,000-meter high, incredible rock pillars, you know, as you might do in other parts of the world, but you get these wonderful little corners that just sort of invite exploring. I'd say that's what makes it fairly unique.
What about you, Paul?
Yeah, well, for me, you know, the Lake District always surprises me in the fact that it feels so wild. I haven't quite worked out how it can feel so wild and yet be so beautifully accessible. And it's that balance that always excites me about the lakes. You know, live there in Windermere, and we go up the back, you know, up to School Knots and all around there, and that's not a wilderness, but it feels lovely. But you only have to go a very short distance, and the Lake District begins to feel wild, and it's a very magic feeling. You know, there aren't big signposts, and there aren't places selling tea and coffee every 5 minutes, and it really, you know, you need to work out your navigation. You need to understand a little bit of weather. It's a challenge everywhere you go, and I just absolutely love it. So, in a nutshell, it feels wild, and yet it's so beautifully accessible.
And I imagine that's something that you came across, John, writing these guidebooks. You did hundreds of routes in the Lake District. I imagine in all weathers, in all different locations. So I'm sure, yeah, that must have been something that you experienced.
Yes, and you don't have to go very far off the path, just building on what Paul's just been saying. So, you know, it's a very well explored place. Yeah, I'm amazed I've managed to find so many places that have been, as far as I know, previously unrecorded. So they're just not very far from each other. But you go around a corner and you find something new, and that's tremendous to be able to find little places that are yet quite easy of access.
And so you've produced two volumes of routes, which cover all different types of scrambles. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to run through the different types of routes that are in the Lake District. I know you've got some slides.
Yeah, so I'm going to hopefully share my screen and then
I'll give it a go.
We'll be good to go. So
I think this will give a flavour of the range of stuff that is on offer within the Lake District, which, I don't know, might surprise people. Fantastic.
Okay, so that's me on top of the Eskdale Needle for those that know it, which again, it's not very high, but you get a sense of, you know, that's Eskdale behind, so it's actually quite a, you know, quite a remote feel to it, despite being quite close to the road. So it's a great place to explore. So I'll just take you through some of them, just to give you a flavour of the Lake District scrambles. So that one you'll be very familiar with. That Striding Edge, taken from the side. Typical busy day. You can see all the people like their lamps on there. So that's at one edge of the scale. That's probably the easiest scramble in the book, and that's you can see all the people coming down the most difficult bit there, down the chimney. But it's still a great route. You know, it's still a lovely edge to go along, and iconic. Now there are two. There's another iconic scramble, that's Sharp Edge. That's my son when he was young, you know, and to me that really exemplifies what scrambling's about. It's like when you're a little child and you just play on the rocks. That's what it is. It's playing on the rocks, and that's Ben doing just that. And then on the right there, that's some people on. It was incredibly slippy, which doesn't really bring out how slippy it was, but Sharp Edge, when it's just you know, that had frost on the top, could be a very slippy place. So. And that's going up. That gives you an example of a typical little crag. You know, it's not big, it's not, you know, overly dramatic, but it's just lovely scrambling to play on those rocks. You know, it's quite inviting when you see that sort of picture. Here you can see there. That's me going on and again, lovely friction on the rock. That's in the evening. That's probably about 8 o'clock in the evening, one evening, you know, and it's, again, I think that brings out the atmosphere of an evening scramble. This is more serious. So this is a crescent route on Pavey Arc. So you really feel the exposure beneath your feet there, and you can see Stickle Tarn down below. And certainly if you don't have a rope, it definitely feels exposed. And these are rock climbing scrambles, so they're actually rock climbs, but I've included them here as scrambles. So that one on the left is absolutely hilarious. You have to go up this narrow crack above his head, and you wonder how on earth you're going to get up there. It's a real little crevice, and I think the rock climbing guide had a description along the lines of what was it? You need to be an anorexic stick man to get up there, so it's quite entertaining. And then the middle one is ordinary route on Arrowhead Ridge, which is incredibly exposed there. And then the right-hand one is actually Needle Ridge, which again is very well-known rock climb. You can see the exposure there. Some of these roots are quite exposed. That's actually looking down on Nape's Needle from the neighbouring ridge. And there are some real fun places. Again, so these are rock climbs. So on the left, that's entering the crevice on Grey Knot's face, which is really entertaining. There really is a body above those legs. And then looking at that's outside face route, the one in the middle, which again is a wonderful subterranean little scramble up the first bit of it. And the right hand one is that route I described earlier of entering that crevice. And then again, there are other different sorts of routes. This is actually on Great End. It's Central Gully, which of course is normally done in the winter, but this is in the summer. And it shows you, even though, you know, in terms of scrambling, it's not classic. It's got a lot of scree in it. And you can see a lot of moss and stuff. I think it's tremendous because it's got such atmosphere. You can see there from the columns of rock and the gill, you know, it oozes atmosphere, that place. So I actually really enjoyed it as a summer route. And another next to it is Cust's Gully, which again is really atmospheric. I actually, in some ways, preferred it in the summer to the winter. And on the right, you can see the great chalk stone that almost looms like a sword of Damocles above you. And then there's that, you know, you can see me going backwards up this up the bridging bit on the moss. It's again really atmospheric, and you get all sorts of different quality of rock. So on the right is Crag Ridge, which is absolutely superb. You know, it's a classic route. You can make it as easy or as difficult as you like. And in the middle, you can see a lot of the gills sometimes become incredibly vegetated. That's that's on Kirk Fell at Ilgill, and some of that is just foraging like in a jungle almost. And then on the left, that's Coomgill, which again I really enjoyed. It's got these real fierce little chalkstone pitches, and you can't really tell on this picture, but actually it's quite exposed and really, really awkward going up that ramp there. And I love these, you know, it really is harking back to the Victorian era of some of going up these gullies and gills. So, you know, the old traditional techniques of bridging, and then we've even got combined tactics in the middle. And there's me bridging up Bleedwater Gill, actually, which is another winter route, but actually it makes a really good summer one as well. And talking of the gills, I love them, and I think it's the movement of the water which hopefully has been captured there. This was actually one cold December day going up Easdale Gill, and it was in spate, and so you can just almost feel the flow of the water next to you, and that really adds an excitement to it. Another gill that's good to do is Link Cove Gill, and it's got quite a serious top pitch. So here's Rachel's actually doing it on a top rope, because it's, you know, probably approaching V diff in socks and all the water running down, so it's not easy. But again, a lovely feel to it, and you can see the greenery coming around the side. And then this one is more gills. So on the left we got Cam Spout, which you know, this is when it's quite dry, but tremendous pitch up there at the top. And the middle is the classic, which is low water gill, and quite a bit of water on that occasion. And then on the right we have Scale Close Gill in Langdale, which was had quite a lot of water coming down. You can see it's real exciting. You see Richard getting really wet there, and you just have to force your way up, and all the while you've got this rushing water coming down. And then the gills, you know, some of them are very, very green. They're little oases almost. I think of them almost like lost worlds, actually. You can particularly see Melgill on the left there, or the greenery. You can see me climbing in the socks, and again Nigel in socks in in the middle. And you have to be quite careful of the mosses because there are some, quite delicate. So it's a question of moving up with as little damage as possible. And here, I think this is the Nether Gorges. Absolutely beautiful. You definitely want to go there on a warm day because you can see me wading through this pool, and I've actually got all my camera gear in there as well, so I really don't want to get it wet. And yeah, it can be beautiful though on a warm day. Just some of these are almost like Amazonian adventures. Really tremendous. And that slide, I hope, sums up the movement of the water, and the impression of it, and you've got the noise of it always around. I know of very few poor gill scrambles, and there are some poor crag scrambles, but very few poor gill scrambles. And then the rocks themselves, you can see at the top some incredible formations, different rocks, different striations, and you can suddenly stumble across some of these things. You just go, wow, that's incredible. And you're right, face up with them, so it really adds something to the day. And then moving on, this was something I discovered actually. It's near some popular scrambles at Great Crag in Buttermere. There's this obscure little route that appeared in the rock climbing guide, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And I managed to piece together a scramble using this and some stuff above, and called it Stegosaurus actually, which you probably see why. It's almost got like the teeth, the jagged edge of a Stegosaurus, and it goes up this edge, and you actually end up on a very, very narrow arete at the top. It's an amazing route. And yet it'd been lying there without anybody doing it, as far as I'm aware, for a long time. And then this one. So this one is near to a very popular route of Corvus, which is one of the most popular rock climbs in the Lake District. Yet just around the corner, discovered this scramble, which actually has some exposure on it. Because it was so close to a very popular climb, I called it Far from the Madden Crowd. It's great to explore these little places that have just been there all the time. This is another, as far as I know it, a new one. So this was on Kirk Fell, and this buttress has lots of nautical connotations in the names. It's near Boat Have, and so I called this Walking the Plank. As you can see, it's this sort of ramp that goes up, and it's incredibly exposed, as you can probably tell from the picture. And this place is amazing to explore. So I had a bivvy up on a lovely summer's night, and then went over to Lynn Mel, which lots of people will have stared at from the bottom and not gone there. And it's a real explorer's place. Lots of loose rock, I have to say, lots of route finding choice. But really has, I don't know, it's almost got an alpine characteristic to it. Absolutely love it. And I've actually found 3 different routes up there now, all of which are pretty good, but all of which are quite serious as well. This was a real little find on Grey Crag near Hartsop, and I stumbled across it one day and found this via ferrata almost. So it had an old wire there and bolts in the rock in a most obscure place, and but then managed to piece together. You can see on the right, that's the start of it. You can just see a little figure. That's me going up that rib, and then it traverses over, and then managed to piece it together with the old wire route, and then another buttress above, and again it was a real good little find, and still doing it. So one of the things about the books is I've piecing together a spreadsheet of all the routes I've actually done. So in the guides there are about 200 individual routes. Well, I've actually done about 400 or so, and still finding new places to explore. So this is approaching Pillar Rock in the coves before Pillar Rock, and I found a couple of routes on these two buttresses, which again is quite a serious place, but it gives some really good, you can see those are proper buttresses. Some good routes. This place near the very popular Pinnacle Ridge on St Sunday Crag, this is another little buttresses, and managed to piece together a route up this really appealing little buttress, and done these in the last couple of weeks. Another route near Pillar takes the some of those slabs on the left, and then you can see Paul climbing the rib. We did this just about a week ago. Some tremendous little scrambling up here. So I think that's it, just to give you an idea of what's available.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, there's so much, isn't there? That was amazing, John.
That was great, John.
Good.
I just realised how little I know about the Lake District.
I think the other thing to just point out is that I know that there's obviously so much range within the book, and you really showed that brilliantly, from routes that are suitable for children right the way up to quite serious rock climbs and gill scrambles and that sort of thing. But everything is, outlined in terms of the safety, isn't it, for the users, and it's all graded, I think, as well.
Yes, so what I've tried to do is I've tried to identify some of those that are suitable for beginners, so it's very easy to reference that, so you can go quickly and find, okay, what's in it if I'm just starting. And on the upper end of the scale, okay, I'm a rock climber, I want a bit more challenge, so we've actually identified those routes that would fall within a rock climbing guide, albeit at the easier end, but they are designated rock climbs.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, I wanted to ask you, I know that you've done a fair bit of scrambling, but as you just said, learning so much there about what's on offer. What route do you kind of go towards when you're picking a route? Would you tend towards one of the kind of classic popular ones, or are you looking to explore those lesser known ones?
Yeah, I tend to take the pretty easy ones because, when I come back to the Lake District, I'm typically been away somewhere, and it's wonderful to come home and pick up a route that maybe I've done lots of times in the past, or one that's in the book. You look at it and think, well, yeah. And the great thing is, you say, with the description, you can leave home and go, right, I know where it is. I'm not going to get lost. I pretty much know how to climb it. Where the hard bits are. So it takes the risk away, and you can just literally go out and enjoy it. So I love to do the classics. And I'm looking on my screen right here at a picture of Bowfell Links. I love it up there. Just to go up there, and even people have done so much up there, and they've climbed every bit of it, I'm sure. And I've sometimes been up there when there's been a whole herd of people. It can still feel like a terrific adventure. The sun's on it, great views everywhere, and go down to the old Dungeon Guild for a beer after easily, and the whole thing just feels like a perfect day out. I mean, where I live up there in Windermere, the nearest bit of rock are those almost impossible bouldering routes on top of Brant Fell, and I often wish they were just a bit easier at scrambling. So I tend to pick the easy ones because I just want a great day out or a great afternoon out, and I've had some good fun with my, in running gear, so shorts and a t-shirt, running shoes and rock shoes in a small rucksack, and just running between crags. Just brilliant thing to do.
So I know, John, you've got a video of, you want to introduce where this is?
Okay, so this video is of Pillar Rock, so it's the classic route, slab and notch. So I actually thought it would be fun to set up my camera on a tripod, and I went up and down the route and just speeded it up a bit. It's speeded it up about 10 times, I think. I have to say, I wasn't quite that quick. So.
Love it.
And then we'll put a link to that as well, because that's on your YouTube channel, isn't it, John?
Yeah.
If people want to watch that again. But yeah, I think it's brilliant. Paul, is that a route that you've ever done?
No, I haven't. And John, we have to get together and do it. I've never done it. I've heard about it all the time. It's one of the classics, isn't it? No, I haven't done it. And in fact, when you were first talking, John, and taking us through your images and speaking about the book, I realised that I'm in a bit of a groove. I go out and do the same ones every time. So when I get the book, that's going to be one of the things to do, is just go to different places. It's funny, right? Just tend to go to the same old places. So I'm going to use your book to discover new ones, but I've not done that one. That looks flipping amazing.
So we've if we move to kind of the practicalities, perhaps this will, I don't know, refresh your mind, Paul, for when you do come back and
yes, please.
you're getting out and going again. So in terms of the practicalities, we've got a question about how many routes in the book are suitable for beginners. And I thought that would also be a good opportunity to talk about, what is your advice for beginners, John? Say, if, I don't know, maybe you've done some hill walking before, but never actually been on a scramble.
Yes, there are quite a number of routes in the book that aren't suitable for beginners. So it is actually aimed at people that maybe who are, want to move on from walking, maybe go towards rock climbing. So there's quite a lot at the harder end, I would actually say that. But there are quite a number of them that are relatively straightforward. And I think that once you've tried a few of the more relatively straightforward ones, then you can move on to the slightly harder ones. So, there's quite a lot of grade ones, so you could choose all those, gain experience, and then move on to some others. And there's plenty of people out there that you can take as a guide to help you if you want to advance a bit and maybe do it safely, and then find out how to keep yourself safe as well. And that's a good way of doing it. Maybe get a day or two to build up that confidence.
And is it a case of kind of doing things on maybe smaller bits of rock to build your confidence up, that sort of thing, rather than necessarily going for like maybe when you're out on a normal fell walk? Would that help?
Yes, I mean, one of the things about the book is you can see how long the route is in terms of the actual scrambling, how many meters of ascent it is. So start with something, not committing. So, if you read the description, it will give you an idea of how serious a route is. So obviously you don't want to start on really serious things where you if you don't like it, there's no option but to continue. Start on something that's not so committing. There's plenty of things where there's loads of route choice. So, if something appears a bit difficult, we'll just go to the side. So there's lots like that, and I'd start on those sorts of scrambles.
And as John says, that thing about finding someone to take you. In the lakes, there's plenty of good professional guides and whatnot, and just get someone, because I've met loads of people who actually are dead fit. They can navigate, they can find a way around, they've got great gear, and yet they can't move very well. And there's just something about one day with someone good to teach you how to move, and it can make an enormous difference in pleasure and also fun, and safety. So yeah, sometimes just that one day with someone good in the lakes can make an enormous difference.
And a follow-up question to that. So, you've done a few easy scrambles, and what would you suggest someone does then to move on to the higher grades? So I guess at that point, that's where they're going to need equipment, which, John, I know you've got some equipment that you'd like to show us.
Yep, okay, now would be a good time. So, I know we've got probably some questions about equipment, so I'll show you some of mine. So most of the time, so you can show it here, I actually have running shoes. I use these nearly all, as you can, I'll just bring it in. You can actually see this is very old. You can see it's well ventilated from those nicely designed little holes in there, and the sole's been worn down a bit. But the great thing about these sorts of shoes is, one, they're comfortable. Yes, they're not going to keep you dry if it rains, but by the other token is they'll let the water out as well, which is particularly good in the gill scramble. You're not going to go along. Secondly, the sole is actually brilliant. It's sticky rubber, so that sort of sole is great for sort of smearing on rock, on slabs and stuff. What it's not good at is if you get little in-cut holes, that's when rock climbing boots become really good, and those sorts of shoes are not good on that. But I much prefer, a lightweight running shoe, which are also not too bad on grass as well, because a lot of scrambles involve grass and rock, because rock boots on grass are horrible. So, and those are really good in gills too. The other shoes I've got are these, which are sort of specialist scrambling type shoes. The Scarpa Mescalitos are the brands available, but they have a more rigid toe, so they're better for the actual climbing, but they're a bit slippier when you get on the grass and stuff. So I would take that if it was more of a rock climb than anything. Other people prefer walking boots, which you can do them in anything. I've actually forgotten my boots a couple of times and I ended up doing some scrambles in sandals, but that is not recommended. It makes it a lot harder, so I wouldn't recommend sandals as footwear. So the other big tip, gills. You want an old sock like this. Socks in some gills are vital actually in some gills, because it's so slippery, because you've almost got like algae on the rocks, which is just like complete ice rink. So what you want to do, you take your sock, you dip it in the stream, which makes it a lot easier to get over the boot, and then you just put it over the boot, and then you get the grip from the old sock, which works surprisingly well. It's very old school technique, but it's yeah, I do most of the gill scrambles like that. I would take a harness. So here's a very, very lightweight one, because you're not going to be hanging around in it from stances. So just take a lightweight one, and you hardly feel you got it on, and it takes up no room in your bag. You can put it on. Most of the time you probably won't need it, but it's there. If you've got it on, you're ready to go, and yeah, it just makes sense. Helmet. Take a helmet when there's loose rock. Again, this is really, really lightweight, so no weight in your bag, comfortable on your head, it'll do the job. Excellent. If you're taking a rope, I wouldn't take a full big rope. This is a shortened version. It's probably about 30 meters or so, absolutely adequate for most people. You don't want a big heavy rope. You're not going to be full pitching all the way up. It's generally for little sections, so take something smaller, and just a rucksack that suits you for a day out. So, and actually you need really minimal equipment for this, so it's an easy thing to do.
And I suppose if you haven't got the right equipment for that harder route, you could just do an easier one, I suppose.
You could, or you might even be able to borrow it off somebody, or hire it, or just go out and buy it once you've done a couple. Yeah.
There's a specific question which I'm just going to read out because I don't understand necessarily all the words in it. But have you got any tips for people looking to progress onto their first protected grade 3 routes? Is being a competent trad climber a prerequisite?
No, it's not a prerequisite. It probably makes it safer, so that if you've got the experience, then you will have probably done more difficult things. So if you go somewhere and you don't quite go the right way and it turns out to be more difficult, then you'll have more in reserve to be able to deal with that. I'd say that would be the most important thing, and you'll be used to exposed situations and so on. However, you might be a very good scrambler and be natural at it, have no rock climbing experience and find it fine. But you don't really know until you get there. And experience is really, really important in this, because scrambling is potentially a really, really dangerous activity, much more dangerous than rock climbing, because you can be in places where one slip and that's it, you know. So you've got to, and experience matters. So you've got to be able to judge, you know, not just the next step, but perhaps the next few moves. Can you get back down again if you get stuck? You know, if you're going up, can you see far enough ahead that you know you can actually do it? And based on your experience from previous scrambles, to be able to assess, yeah, I can definitely do that or not. And that experience really matters with this. I don't know if you've got anything to say on that, Paul.
No, dead right. That's terrific advice. And I love that thing that, you know, rock climbers can have that technical element in reserve. Just when it goes a bit wrong or you accidentally, you know, come off route. So that's a great thing. But it's interesting because I've sometimes had periods where I've been climbing quite well, you know, rock climbing, and then taken a day to go scrambling and been a little bit gripped. And I've been surprised. And I've thought, well, that's funny. Why am I? You know, I've been in lots and lots of high exposed places in my life, and I've just had that moment every once in a while. So it's lovely you say that, because that's one of the appeals of scrambling. It can have just that edge to it sometimes. Absolutely love it.
There's a question for you, Paul. Interested to hear your top running and scrambling circuits, if you can remember.
Oh yeah, great. When you go up Langdale, and there's the big Langdale boulder, then on the other side of the road to that, on the northern side of the road, there's that big slope of boulders, John. I can't remember the name of it, and it's a really great one. It's the slope up there, and there's a whole run of small boulders. So it's really, really terrific to go up there, park somewhere up near Chapel Style or as near as the big Langdale boulder as you can, which obviously is quite difficult to cycle up. I've cycled up there quite a bit. And that's a great day, you know, cycle in, leave the bike somewhere, put the running shoes on, and nip around those boulders. It's an absolutely brilliant, because that slope, you get everything. There are some routes that look dead easy. But when you get up there, because the slope is a bit steep, it's really hard to get started. So you can suddenly find yourself spending 45 minutes getting absolutely nowhere, but getting an incredible workout. So you've had the run, you've had the bike ride, you've had to sort of run up there, then you're fiddling about, can't get off the ground, see one over there, jog to that one, turns out to be dead easy, makes you feel good, and then run around and all the way back down to your bike, or indeed the car. And that slope up there above Chapel Style and further into Langdale is an absolutely great place, and you rarely see anybody up there.
It sounds like a really nice way of you could either go out and do a big scramble, say on, or like a big rock climb on something like Pillar Rock, and make that the focus of your day, or you can incorporate it into your running or your walking. And I just think it's really nice that there's that much range and, you know, options and opportunity within the Lake District.
Well, that's the thing. That is the secret of the Lake District, I think, is, you know, it's much more accessible than people realise. It's much wilder, as I said, than people realise. And the adventure is just there. I mean, when you think, you know, you're on these things, and I've sometimes gone up from my house up to Brant Fell, and there's that big slab at the back that's dead easy, you know, so sort of go up and down there to warm up. You sometimes see families and kids up there, and then come round to those bouldering routes, which are not very high. I mean, not much higher than a high ceiling in a house, but you've got to be really good to get up them. My son can get up them sometimes, but I flipping can't. But I have a brilliant workout, and that you look like a madman to people that don't understand climbing or scrambling. You look like a complete lunatic. You're standing there on the grass, just going up a little bit, falling off, going up a little bit, falling off, going around in circles, up over here, getting absolutely nowhere, covered in sweat, having a fantastic workout.
Another question for you, John. I think my biggest worry is getting up and then not feeling confident to come back down on the same route. Are there alternative, easier routes for coming down within the book or books?
Yeah, and this is where whether route is serious or not matters. So, as I say, there are plenty of routes where there would be easier alternatives on the side. So, you can see them. So they're almost like, it's the difference between finding the easiest route in a difficult place or finding the most difficult thing in an easy place. So finding the most difficult thing in an easy place, if you get stuck with it, that's all right, because you just go off to the side where it's easy. If you're in a really committing place where you're already on the easiest line up a difficult cliff, then that's more difficult because you're already on the easiest place. So you could get stuck. So I think the trick there is to try and find something where there are other options. You're not going to be, have to continue and potentially get into a dead end. So,
Fantastic.
I remember doing that in Fontainebleau, John, a long time ago. Came to Fontainebleau and didn't buy the book or the guide. I didn't realise you could get a free one at the entrance place there, and so I picked a route that looked all right. It turned out to be a bit of a battle and a bit committing, but got on top of this big house-sized boulder to discover that I'd sweated bullets going up the descent route, and got on top of this thing for absolutely ages before I was brave enough to have a go at getting down. So what you just said there was great advice.
And as a follow-up question, John, when you were exploring new routes, did you ever find yourself in a difficult situation where you had to climb or abseil off?
Definitely, quite a number of times. So this is definitely an activity that you need to be built up lots of experience for. Don't try doing this unless you've got loads of experience. So I've had to down climb lots of times in difficult situations. Sometimes, quite a lot of it's on my own. So you need to be really confident. Having said all that, over the years, yes, I've been in some harrowing situations. So you're taking yourself into some quite dangerous terrain. So some of this is very loose. There's nobody around. It's vegetated. I had one occasion when the ledge I was standing on fell off. So I was literally just hanging from my arms with this ledge having just completely disintegrated. Another time, actually on a very local crag, I got into a horrible situation, but I've got enough experience to get out of it. So you do these exploratory things because you don't know how difficult it's going to be. You have to eye it up on the spot, and it's like the original climbers would do, and you need to have quite a good judgment of because things often look easier than they are when you get there, and it's often steeper than it looks sometimes. So you have to sort of work that out. You have to work out to assess the rock, and not just what you're on right now, which might be nice, but that looks like it might have a bit of moss on, or it might that looks a bit loose, so I'm going to test every hole. I'm not going to rely, because if you're relying on it, you've got to test it so that you know what's okay to balance on. Certainly all this exploratory stuff is you need a lot of experience before you start on that.
And that is the real advantage of having these guidebooks, is that you've done all that for everyone.
Absolutely.
So you've mapped it all
what
out.
I'll try and do is point out things so that if it proves to be very loose, I'll say so. So you know more what to expect and where the difficult parts are likely to be. So you know what's in store, really.
And I guess things like, if it's going to be particularly difficult in wet weather or, difficult conditions otherwise, that sort of thing.
Yes.
There's a couple of follow-up questions about ropes. So are confidence ropes suitable for scrambling?
depends what it's being used for. I would say yes on the whole, because you're particularly the person that's leading is it probably wouldn't need the rope. So it's only the second that actually needs the rope. So if they fall off, they're not going to go very far because they'll be secured. They're not going to put much stress on the rope. So a confidence rope should be fine for that. It's only if you actually take a leader fall and the rope goes over an edge of rock or something, then no, it wouldn't be very good. But so if you were doing one of the rock climbs and you were doing it as a rock climb and leading on it, then no, a confidence rope wouldn't be very good. So it depends what you're on and the circumstances.
And at what point should you rope yourself up to your scrambling mates when you're outdoors?
Again, is how long is a piece of string? I think it depends on how confident you are, and it's always best to try and think ahead. So don't wait until you're in a difficult situation and you've got to get that rope out your bag and you're feeling a bit wobbly and you can't get it out. Oh dear, I wish I wasn't here, or my foot's wobbling. You don't want to be in that situation. So try and think ahead. Oh, it looks as though it might be a bit difficult a bit ahead. I better get the rope out now, just in case. It's much better to do it that way around. I'm sure Paul would say something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit like the old thing about sailing, isn't it? When do you put a reef in the sail? When do you shorten sail, make the sail smaller? And the answer is the very first time you think about it. And same thing with a rope. When particularly if in a big group, sometimes you get that person who sees everybody else being really confident, and so they're now struggling and having a big wobbly, as John rightfully says, and it can be hard for them to pipe up, hey, I need a rope. So whoever's the more experienced, it's down to them really to just keep a lookout and offer the rope. It's much easier when someone offers you the rope. You go, oh, good idea, yeah, I will. Rather than sort of put your head above the parapet and say, I know everybody's doing great, but I'm completely gripped. Can I please have a rope? That's hard to say.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point, actually. And so one thing I wanted to talk about a bit more is gill scrambling, because I know we've touched on it earlier with wearing socks and all those amazing photos, John. But I wondered, what are the extra precautions that you need to take if you're going to go gill scrambling?
Extra precautions. Depends what type of gill scramble. I mean, some of them can be quite easy, and the worst that will happen is you just get wet, you fall in the pool, and it won't be very pleasant. But beyond that, others are quite serious. You could get into some, potentially you could injure yourself or worse. Extra precautions. You need to take more care on the rock because it's going to be slippy. So think very carefully about what you're holding and about whether your foot's going to slip off, and just move quite steadily. And if somebody's not so confident, then the leader is probably more important actually in those circumstances to have a rope, because if they haven't got the experience, so if they do slip, then they're held. So look for things like big branches and trunks and so on that you can belay somebody from. That's probably a good thing. Also, the rocks can be quite loose sometimes. It's a moving environment in a gill. So again, be careful on those. I'd just say overall, I think you need to take more care on every footstep you take.
There's that thing too, isn't there, John, about some of the gills have become especially protected areas. And I keep thinking of Launchy Gill, which was one of my favourites. I used to absolutely love going up Launchy Gill in all kinds of conditions, and we've had some really glorious adventures in there. But then it became, if I got this right, John, did it become a triple SI or something?
Yes, well, I've never done it because it's always been a triple SI.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So, there's interesting, you see all the water, whizzing down these gills, and they look, pretty much indestructible. But in Launchy Gill in particular, they found, and I can't remember what it was, some small plants anyway that needed to be protected, and the whole region was a special ecosystem that needed to be protected. So it became a special scientific interest. But John, you can climb it when it's frozen. Is that right?
Yes, I climbed it this year actually when it was frozen. So it's a really good thing to do. You're not going to do any damage when it's covered in ice.
Okay, perfect.
And my question for you, Paul, is that as someone who loves diving and the sea and all things watery, I mean, do you prefer gill scrambling to normal scrambling?
It's hard to know. There are times when it feels a bit more adventurous, and you can have it completely to yourself, and it changes all the time depending on the amount of water whizzing down there. And when I think of scrambling, I think of two complete different versions. Going up the Bell on Coniston and just walking along and experiencing the joy of moving on the rock, and a nice big lunch in the rucksack and a whopping great thermos of tea, and idyllic. And at the other end of the scale, I think of really full-on adventures in the gills. It's very hard to pick between them. So give me a nice sunny day on an easy scramble with a whopping great thermos of tea, or indeed an absolutely full-on thumping adventure in a gill.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And all the people that I've introduced to gill scrambling have loved it. So, they probably come out with the impression, this is absolutely mad, but I love it. So it's that sense of adventure. It's definitely more adventurous in a gill.
Yeah, I can imagine on a really hot summer's day that it must be actually quite refreshing to be in the water rather than like flogging up a hillside.
Yeah, definitely.
Any more questions? Oh, John, you said that your spreadsheet of routes, is that available or is that in process?
Yes, so I think it should be up on the Cicerone website, so it should be accessible from there. Although I've added a few which are not yet added to the ones. So yes, but hopefully with time that will be updated. So what's on there is basically a name, a grid reference, so you know where it is, and you know where the start is, and a one-line description of it, and then the grade. And the difficulty and the quality of the route as well. So the aim of that really is to just say, this is roughly how difficult it is. This is where it is. It's been done before. Both to identify things that are really good, so you can think, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll go and have a look at that. Or the reverse, actually. I put everything in. So things that were absolutely horrendous, but I pointed it out to people. I wouldn't go there if I were you. There are quite a few of those.
That would be a green light to some people, John.
I know, unfortunately it would, yeah. But they have been warned.
That seems really helpful for all scramblers, whether you're starting out or whether you're experienced, because I guess you're giving them all the information at a glance there, aren't you, as to which routes they could go for.
It relies on a certain degree of experience to be able to use it like that.
I think we've actually got through. I think you kind of covered this earlier. Are all scrambles in the books achievable in standard boots, or do the upper end of graded scrambles require specific climbing footwear? Did we cover that?
I mean, you can do them all in anything almost, but it will be a lot easier in top rock climbers could do these in almost anything, I would imagine, in Wellingtons, but Yeah, the rock climbs, some people will definitely find them easier in rock boots. So whatever's comfort, and you should know from your experience what will be suitable for you. Certainly I've found one or two of the rock climbs were really quite tricky in running shoes, and I wouldn't recommend it personally. You know, something that's more suited to it will definitely be easier.
And perhaps as a sort of final question or discussion, what is the most underrated scramble in the Lake District?
Underrated from what perspective, really? In difficulty or in quality? So I'm saying, yeah.
Should we go quality?
You know, one thing I would say is there are loads and loads of scrambles in the Lake District, but people tend to focus on the top 10 or 20. And outside of those 10 or 20, I've hardly ever seen anybody. Ever. You know, not even one person on most of them. So I'd say there are loads of underrated ones because people tend to focus on all the well-known ones. So Sharp Edge, Crag Ridge, all those classic routes, some of them in Coniston and on Crag and stuff. And you go to all the others, you're very unlikely to see anybody, in my experience. And there's so many. I mean, there are so many. So there are lots of unappreciated scrambles is probably how I'd put it. So look beyond the top 10 or 20 or whatever it is, because there are lots more. For instance, I actually really like Broad Buttress next to Pinnacle Ridge on St Sunday Crag. Now, Pinnacle Ridge, everybody knows, it appears in all the magazines and stuff, and people say, how wonderful it is. I really like the one next door. Maybe I'm just a bit perverse, but I think in the previous version, it took a certain route, and actually there's a really nice line, actually, which is probably a bit more difficult and takes you into some wonderful rocks. So, just look around and you'll find things that are don't just go with the magazines and stuff that everybody knows, because there's equally good stuff outside that.
And just to say, I think the whole of the Lake District scrambling is underrated. I mean, John and I have travelled a lot, and there is, I could spend the rest of my life scrambling in the Lake District and be really happy.
Is there a particular route that you're looking forward to doing, Paul, or perhaps John could recommend one to you?
For me, Raven Crag Udale, because I've done it so many times. So when I come home, I'll go up there, and I will. And it's funny. I'm looking at the picture of Bowfell Links here. I love it up there. It's a decent walk in. It's lovely on the top. So that's where I'm going to go as soon as I get back.
That's really interesting, because I've never seen anybody up there. You say people up there, and it doesn't, and it's a wonderful place because it always gets the sun as well. So it's one of those places where you can have your cup of tea in the afternoon. So.
It's big, it's wander about, fantastic.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for joining me this evening. It's been absolutely wonderful, and I think people have really got a lot out of it, judging by the questions. So thank you, and hopefully you'll both be able to go scrambling in the Lake District together very soon.
Yes, please
send us photos.
Deal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brilliant, John. Thank you so much. See you, Amy.
And thank you to the audience this evening for sending all those fantastic questions. Hope you found it useful and inspiring, and that you can get out and explore the lakes as well yourselves. For all things Cicerone, you can head on over to the Cicerone website, where you can sign up to our newsletter. You can also join us on social media at Cicerone Press on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and join our Facebook group Cicerone Connect, which is a lovely community where people share photos. So if you go on a scrambling adventure and you'd like to share it, share your photos there. And yeah, we hope to see you soon for one of our future live events. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. See everybody.
Bye.